Great, so we're going to go to our panelists now. Dan's going to stay up here as well, and of course we have Rhonda who's going to talk about the city, and Todd a little bit is going to fill us in on the suburbs, which will be great. And Dan, so while we've got you up here, I had a thought on, here we are starting a new year, and our tax structure has obviously changed quite a bit, not only in the state level, but the federal level. And other costs like healthcare costs that are going to hit retailers and is going to affect their rents and their ability to expand. How is this going to translate into the investment market? We saw a lot of closings right at the end of the year. Is that going to continue? What do you think?
Well, starting with the taxes, and then we'll talk about healthcare in a second. We did see a lot of closings at the end of the year, and many of the sellers were anticipating higher capital gains tax, and they chose to sell when they did. That's happened. It's gone. With regard to overall investment activity, I don't think the change in capital gains will have any effect whatsoever. The driving factors will go beyond that, and a lot of deals were done when taxes were a lot higher than they will be with this new tax rate. I think while all the publicity has been focused on marginal tax rates for people making, it was over $250,000, over $400,000, it's not going to affect how we choose to go to Whole Foods instead of Walmart to shop, the people in this room. But the hidden thing that's not being talked about is that there are a variety of other tax increases. The expiration of payroll tax breaks comes to mind immediately, which are going to affect people at the lower end. And I think is going to influence and probably keep going for longer than we might anticipate the trend of value retailing. With regard to healthcare, there are certain aspects in the investment market, and it includes retail, where tenants who are employee heavy are going to have to, hotels come to mind instantly, but retail as well, where there's going to be higher costs of operating. And since tenants pay rent based on total operating cost, it includes their cost of personnel, I think we're going to find in some cases some pushback on lease rates.
All right. Well, great. All right, so we're in the city. We're sitting above Target. Let's talk about San Francisco, Rhonda. What are you seeing out there?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of people on the street. The busy is active. People on the street with jobs, actually. We saw a lot of openings last year, many flagships, and they all seem to revolve around three themes: urbanization of concepts, experiential retail, and showrooming. Right downstairs, we have City Target. They are a leader in taking a tried and true formula and reconceptualizing it for the urban market. It's a smaller footprint. It's a customization of product to the local and international market. And there's a big wow in design. Uniqlo opened up on Powell Street. This is their first West Coast store, and this is a tech-fueled, entertaining environment. It's fun, it's inspiring. There's 90 mannequins rotating around the store, and there's, 80 LCD screens. It's fun to be there.
So Rhonda, how large is that store?
That store is 29,000 square feet.
All right. And do they have a prototype? The one in New York on Fifth Avenue is like a department store. What?
Yeah, it's much larger. So in our market, and we're seeing this throughout retail, is that that movement to a smaller store format. Right. And that's an example of one.
The one in New York is 85,000 feet.
Thank you, Todd.
Black Mirrors, it seems bigger.
Yeah. We had a couple other flagships. Mulberry opened on Grant Street. This is a really wonderful environment to be in. It's like an expensive townhouse with an art gallery upstairs, and that's one of the keys of experiential retail. Experiential retail isn't a new term. It's been around for a while, but we're seeing more of it. The notion that when you cross the store's threshold, you enter another world and you like being there. It's memorable and you want to come back. Restaurants have been very good at this. We had several of those open up in San Francisco last year. Hakkasan from the UK, Rosa Mexicana from New York, and My China, Martin Yan's new restaurant at the San Francisco Center. It features an 1,800-pound monastery bell over the bar, so it's great to hang out there and people watch. And as we know, people watching can be the best entertainment of all.
How, so those larger restaurant formats, that come from out of the market, what kind of deal structure are those in? They get a lot of TIs? How does that work?
Well, it depends property by property. The real key in structuring those deals is there a level of confidence that the restaurant will get into high percentage rents. So different from retail, the rents tend to be lower. But if there's the promise of getting into that $50, $60 per square foot range through percentage rents, then the deal starts to make sense, even with $100, $200 in TI.
All right, so how does that, I mean, you know, San Francisco seems to have a pretty low vacancy rate. Give us an idea, like statistically, what you're seeing out there, rates, rents.
Sure. We ended 2012 at a 4% retail vacancy rate. It's one of the lowest in the country. The neighborhoods were really strong. All the retail neighborhood corridors experienced a rise in rents. They started the year out with a rental range of, say, $48 to $72 per square foot. And recently there was a deal on Union Street done at $100 a square foot. Lots of fitness, lots of food. Fitness, Equinox, SoulCycle did deals, and fitness-related apparel. Lorna Jane out of Australia, Prana, and there's several others that are circling around. On the square itself, we ended the year at 4.8%, which is down from 5.8% retail vacancy last year. Rents range from $100 to $400 per square foot. Some of the blocks are $500 to $700 per square foot. And you know, this may seem like that's very high for the Bay Area, but we have to keep it in perspective. In Manhattan, rents start for retail space start at $600 a square foot. While I was at an international retail conference last year in Europe, many retailers were commenting about entering the States, and how with New York at rents of $3,000 per square foot, they were considering initially coming out to the West Coast first rather than starting out there.
Makes us look pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. All right, let's transition over to Todd. Todd, tell us about development in the suburbs and kind of what's happening out there.
Well, we're having a lot of fun in the suburbs. In the Bay Area right now, there's 10 projects that are under construction or opening this year that are over 100,000 square feet. There's several more smaller centers that are mostly grocery anchored that are going as well, and there's at least 7 projects that are planned and thinking about in 2014, 2015. If I can start talking about the traditional surface level centers, in San Jose, 100 Properties is developing Village Oaks. It's anchored by Target and Safeway on both ends of it, and there's a main street down the middle. You know, with Garrick is talking about housing, there's 60 acres next to it. It's a big old Hitachi industrial campus. It's a reuse, but 60 acres, and it's entitled for 2,900 homes. 1,100 homes will open by the time the center opens, which certainly helps with the retailers' projections.
And this site actually has a couple hundred homes. Are they apartments or condos on here?
There's 220 apartments on the site, right next to Safeway. It has its own separate parking, so it certainly is.
You know, what kind of, give us a range of rents that you got on this. You know, it's opening in 2014, releasing it today. You're releasing it actually probably 8 months ago, so.
Yeah, so the rents, with the shop deals, most of the shop deals are in the low 50s. The juniors are in the mid 20s to the low 30s, and I would say when we started doing this project a year ago, the shop rents are higher than we expected, and the juniors are slightly lower than we expected.
Yeah, it seems like the junior market doesn't have, I mean, there's some velocity in it. I know you're going to discuss it later on in who's hot and who's not, but it's a little thin in the junior market, right?
That's right. Like. That's why there's very little of junior space in these projects you're seeing, and making a lot.
You'll probably see too, as you look at these going forward, you're going to see Safeway and Target on a lot of these plans. That's not because we're representing the centers. That's because that's who's driving these deals. It's the only way they're getting built. So keep going. Sorry.
All right. So Catellus is also very busy. They've got 2 projects going. The first one is in Alameda, which has a remarkably similar site plan to the one in San Jose. It's anchored on both sides by Safeway and Target again. There's a main street down the middle. There's also a tremendous amount of housing out there. It's the Navy site. And Kurt, you know this project well. How many residential units do you think will be built out there?
Oh, that I'm not really sure of. I think Alameda Point, which is just off of this screen, is originally master planned at 1,400. And I recently saw an article where, the citizens actually, with the real estate market coming back, the housing market, Garrick, you're talking about it coming back, you know, Alameda notoriously has been slow on permits for housing and putting a moratorium on them. They seem to be shaking that off. Maybe they'll approve more housing. There's a couple thousand units just around this site. And this is a good example of mixed use as well, or, you know, in the sense that, you know, it's really almost a 90-acre site that Catellus is developing, and the retail center is really the first phase of it, and it's kind of helping get all the infrastructure, you know, the water, the power out to the site originally.
You know, Matt,
That's military base. So.
if I can interject for a moment, this actually is a phenomenon, I think, which creates really good investment opportunities. Because as many people know, the value of residential land in an up market like we have exceeds the value of normal retail land. And we also know there's a lot of strip centers that may be functionally obsolete or unleasable because of new, better competition that's been developed. So naturally, lots of developers want to go in there and scrape these centers and build housing. But I know of a circumstance, Marlin Cove in Foster City comes to mind, where that's exactly what a residential developer wanted to do last cycle, and the city wanted to retain its retail, both for the residents and candidly for the tax revenues. Here's where the convergence of the demand for housing and downsizing of retailers could come together. Because in order to get the entitlements to build that housing, the developer had to promise retail. But now retail can be promised in a smaller format, allowing side-by-side mixed-use developments on a lot of these sites that really don't work anymore for
Yeah, not just
concept.
mixed use, but even these grade level centers, you know, I mean, we're capping out at 320,000 square feet. You need an acre, you need a grocer, and you need a couple juniors. And, you know, I think gone are the days, for the most part, where you're going to see the 500,000 and 600,000 square foot centers. You know, they're going to be, it's a pretty good example. You're even seeing it in regional malls. You know, Westfield own this, but, you know, they've got a number of centers around the Bay Area where they're, you know, they're bringing grocery into the centers and bringing entertainment into the centers, because it just seems like the soft good component of it, certainly the hard good side of it, has been affected heavily by the electronic industry, but the soft goods is slow to kind of come back. So anyway, sorry, keep going, Tom.
So, you know, Catellus also has a project that is, I think it's the fourth phase of Pacific Commons that they call the Block. It's anchored by Target and Cinemark, and they're building a Main Street through there that will start construction this year. Men's Warehouse and Ulta will be on the front. There's a big sporting goods store, a junior, that may happen in the back that most of you could guess who it is. And in Cupertino, Sobrato went and purchased the Homestead Square where PW Market was, and Safeway, I believe, is under construction right now and should open the first quarter. And they're knocking down an existing center and doing it again right. And there'll be a Ross store there and other shops. In Dublin, there's a second phase of the Target project on Fallon Road, where Dick's is under construction with the first store in the Bay Area, which is exciting to see. Kurt, it's a project that you know well. Anything you want to add on Dublin?
We need more tenants.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a good example of running short. You know, it's a big market, Tri-Valley out there, a lot of retail on the freeway. Cities keep entitling more retail, which is, you know, what they want. They want tax dollars, but at the end of the day, it seems like, you know, sometimes this is not good for us to say, but sometimes you can entitle too much retail in certain markets, right? So it's kind of an example of what's going on out there a little bit. Although I know you're going to talk about the outlet center in a bit. You know, I think the shopping patterns are going to shift out there a little bit, but we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, I tell you, we did a BJ's deal out in this project, and Paragon Outlets is across the way with almost no food in it, and that BJ's is one of the best BJ's in the whole country now, and because of all the traffic and energy that's generated out there. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but sticking to the traditional surface level centers in Regency, after 7 or longer years of entitlement, has their Target project under construction. And Matt, you want to say a few words on what you guys are doing out there?
This is a center that, you know, the old Kenilworth Junior High School site. This, in my mind, is a notorious site. It took a long time for the Regency guys to get it entitled, kind of the classic small town politics in Petaluma. The most notable thing is, on this, I think, is one of the off-site improvements that I think is interesting anyway, was the development of the Petaluma Little League field. And you guys might recall Petaluma went all the way to the World Series last year.
There we go.
So I know the Regency guys were up there for that dedication. They're pretty excited about that. This center is, you know, under construction right now. If you drive up there, the Target will seem like it's right on the freeway. And, you know, but again, while Safeway declined to come to this center, we did land Sprouts, a couple juniors in it. We're 90% pre-leased, opens in July, right? Yeah, July. And I think we're hoping to have it 100% leased before it opens, which is actually pretty exciting. And this was one of the first out of the ground here, kind of post-recession, so been a good success story. Okay, so if that's, let's get off the subject of kind of these grade level deals. Tell us what's different out there.
Well, in Livermore, the Paragon Outlets opened this in the third quarter, tremendously successful. They have all the best brand names out there: Polo, Neiman Marcus, Saks, Colahan, you name it. The best brand names are out there in that outlet center. I think it's going to have a big impact on the shopping patterns. It'll certainly affect Stone Ridge Mall. I think it'll affect the Tracy outlets for certain, and
I think it's going to affect the whole Bay Area. You know, I don't know about you guys. My wife was out there shopping here yesterday, and you know, we live on a peninsula, so for her to schlep out, you know, really to the Tri-Valley out there is, you know, a big move. She used to go to Gilroy if she did that kind of shopping. You know, we're seeing a lot of outlet shopping. You know, there's not a lot of regional mall growth. You know, we're seeing power centers go by the wayside, more community center size projects really coming online. That's in mixed use. I really think that's the direction we're going to go. But it seems interesting that there are so many of these outlet centers, you know, as a new channel of revenue for retailers and I guess developers that are being put together. It's a good example of it. And getting closer to the Inner Bay. I know there's a number of developers that do this that have been looking in the Inner Bay for a long, well, not about a long time, but certainly during this recession, thinking the land was cheap enough. They might have missed that boat.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a good example of something different.
Well, this is probably the first outlet center done in at least 15 years in the Bay Area. So it's a big deal, and it's extremely successful. But they've got another 150,000 feet under construction right now as well. So we'll see how that goes. But in Mountain View, Merlin Geyer found the pretty ordinary Sears building that had been there for 60 years and bought it in 2009 for $55, somewhere around $55 a foot. And kind of an ugly, ordinary building that Home Depot was going to take and got shot down by the city, thankfully. But the market was really bad in 2009. And Merlin Geyer had the vision to go and build a project that's under construction right now that is really what we expect to see more of in the Bay Area as development happens. You have a Safeway with parking on the roof. You have residential over retail. They're going to have a movie theater. They also recently purchased the Beverages and More and Ross building. They're going to knock that down and build 600,000 feet of office space. So, you know, you look at that residual land value now compared to what they paid for, and it'd be interesting.
What did they pay for that? Around mid-50s?
About 55 is what they paid for. But you know, what's interesting too is Safeway, which we could lease in a heartbeat that is going out, is going to be knocked over and made residential, and because it's a higher and better, well, higher land value, that's for sure. I'm sure it makes Safeway happy as well because they don't have competition in their backyard. But that land value's highest use was residential.
What kind of rents are they seeing in here in the retail?
Oh, the rents are pretty impressive, and they seem to keep going up. They're now quoting $70 net. It seems that most of the deals are, I'm talking about the shop space. Most of them are 60 to 65. The key to it, there's not very much of it, and it's a very, very high profile location. There's tremendous retail demand in the A sites out there right now, and those are rents that we haven't seen at all. Just a couple years ago, directly across the street, we did a deal with Metro PCS at $28 a foot, and on the other corner, we did a deal with Luther Burbank on a 4,000 square foot space, and it's on the hard corner, San Antonio and El Camino. It's got a monument sign. It's got great parking, visibility, everything. We did at $32, and now they're making deals $65. And as it seems to get closer to the end, the rents seem to be going up because there's so much demand. So
Todd, this is kind of a trend that's taking place. It seems like, well, really everywhere, but it's really noticeable here where you've got really high rents, new projects, older buildings across the street getting, low teens, single-digit kind of rents. But you're seeing this all over the Bay Area, right? I mean, it's not just
we see it everywhere. It's a tale of two worlds out there. I have a project in Belmont where 4 blocks away, it's a Safeway anchored center, and we get $42 net rents. And 4 blocks away, we have a center where the landlord just asked us to put it out on the market 99 cents to $1.50. It's a good center. It's not anchored. It's not right in the middle of the action. And you hear us talk annually, but it's pretty much a different language with these local shop tenants where 99 cents or $1.50 is, we feel like it's giving it away. But it is, with the B properties, there's such an incredible disparity between the quality A and the B on what you can get out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, Dan, let me ask you this. If there's a lot of these B properties in big disparity in rent, I mean, is that a great opportunity for a buyer to come in and kind of buy a B property then?
Well, I think so, if it's the right B property. I mean, this is a great example of a baby being thrown out with the bathwater over the last number of years. If B properties are B properties because investors are wary or concerned about the sanctity of the income stream. Will that tenant make it? Will that mom and pop tenant be there? Will the buying power be there? And as a result, people have shied away from them, the result being the cap rates have had to rise for them to be sold. At the same time, you see really good properties in A markets where they might have been full forever, but because they're in B markets and the concern is there about the general economy, people shun them. But Todd's comment about the tale of two cities is true. I mean, the cap rate disparity between an A and a B could be 200 or 300 basis points. The key is to find the one where the risk isn't 200 or 300 basis points. I think money's going to be made.
All right, well, probably there's nowhere in the Bay Area with less land than the city and county of San Francisco. Rhonda, are you seeing, this trend, maybe different kinds of developments in the city take place?
Sure. We're just starting to say, well, maybe B is the new A when it comes to properties. We've seen some of these borders expand. City Target being an example at the Metreon, which really shifted the shopping area around Union Square south of Market. Some new developments coming on board past the 5th and Market crossroads, typically a do not enter zone. But we've got Market Street Place, it used to be called City Place, on board with 250,000 square feet of retail. 901 Market with another close to 100,000 square feet of retail. And while these projects have been in the works for a while, retailers are actually paying attention this time. So we're seeing our trade area shift south of Market and further west of 5th.
So as they're shifting, Dan, so what does that mean for building values? I mean, does that create opportunity or does that downzone properties or, how do you see that affecting the investment world?
Well, once again, I think we're seeing a circumstance where retail is going to go where you wouldn't see it before. Mixed use is the trend in urban areas. A great example is the Produce Group project they have at Dolores and Market Street, the former S&C Ford used car lot, where they're building for sale condos, but in order to get that done, they had to provide retail. And Whole Foods is going to go there in an urban store, structured with apartments above. Again, there are a lot of opportunities, and as you have greater population density of folks with money, they need retail. And we're going to see it south of Market and in a variety of corridors in San Francisco.
Okay. So, Rhonda, then back to you. What is driving that in the city? What are some of the key drivers you're seeing?
Well, key drivers, the jobs are here, the culture's here, the weather's here. Tourism is a main driver that feeds San Francisco retail and restaurants with 16 million plus visitors coming here annually, infusing $8.5 billion into the economy. A key pivotal driver, though, it's really fun, is tech. Just as it's been a driver in office, it's a substantial driver in retail, creating new neighborhoods, new concepts, and so on. Of the 30,000 jobs that were created in San Francisco in the last 2 years, the majority of them were in tech. 91% office vacancy at year-end 2012, and over 5 million square feet of office absorption. That's a lot of people coming and going to work. They need to shop, they need to eat, so it's creating new concepts, new neighborhoods, and stabilizing walkable streets.
Can you guys hear me?
No.
No.
No. Did the whole thing come off?
Let me help you out, Kurt.
Didn't mean to shake you up there, Matt.
This is perfect. They're talking about tech, right? And so
Yeah, exactly.
we become reliant. We become reliant on tech.
Here. Oh, you're good.
Well, you know what? One of the things I want to say, thanks.
It's upside down.
I haven't even been drinking yet.
Bring out the flask.
Good to go? All right, great. So, Rhonda, let me ask you this. It seems like there's a lot of action and development taking place around the Embarcadero, right? We got, obviously the Giants came in, but, the Warriors are talking about coming in.
Right.
You've got
Exploratorium opening up.
Exploratorium, New Pier, America's Cup. There seems to be a lot of action. It seems like things are shifting back to the water, or
right, a lot of development along the waterfront, and unlike some of the developments you were talking about, Todd, our developments are cultural and entertaining in nature, and then of course mixed use. So as you mentioned, a lot of things on the waterfront. Exploratorium is opening up. America's Cup Village is being built as we speak. It'll open this summer. It'll feature a 9,000-seat stadium run by Live Nation, and Sting is supposed to be playing there. We've got the Pier 70 project, development by Orton Development. It'll be a mixed-use project with office, manufacturing meets retail, and restaurants. The Giants are in partnership on a project south of the ballpark with Cordish. That'll be a mixed-use village.
And they're describing that as almost like a little neighborhood they're going to build.
Exactly, they'll create a whole new neighborhood down there.
Not a lot of boxes, but more of, trying to create, a new Union Street out there or something like that.
Exactly. Back on the cultural side, MoMA is tripling their gallery space. They're adding 100,000 square feet of gallery space. So more culture, more entertainment, driving retail and restaurants in the city.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, let's move along. Let's go to the fun part of this. Well, it's all been fun, but let's move on to kind of who's hot, who's not in the retail world, Todd. Give us a laydown.
Well, obviously Target and Safeway are very hot and leading the way, but the thing I like best about them is they're both being creative. I mean, we're on top of a Target store right now. Safeway, though, is for them we think in the past is a pretty structured company. And now in Millbrae, they're doing a podium store where the parking's below. In Los Gatos, they did parking underneath. In San Antonio and Mountain View, there's parking on the roof. In Burlingame, there's parking on the roof. They've got subterranean parking on a store in Los Altos, but they're getting into these very expensive, very tough markets, being extremely creative and making things happen. So I'm really impressed with what Safeway's doing. With the juniors that are filling the center, Dick's is coming into the market, as we talked about before. The TJX company is very aggressive with home goods, TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and Ross is out being very aggressive as well. With the grocery category is certainly on fire. Fresh Market's coming into the market. They have a store in Roseville and a new one in Palo Alto, and they're coming through. But Sprouts has several projects going. If we did that list of 10 or 11 new developments, there's a lot of new or smaller projects that are under 100,000 feet that are being planned by these guys. Whole Foods has several projects going, which is fun to see. They've got a new one that's going to start construction in Fremont. They just signed a deal in Berkeley. Kind of an interesting.
That's an interesting deal. They swapped with a tenant, right? One of your tenants.
Yeah. It was Office Depot had a big store, 30,000-foot store, which is too big for them, and trying to get down to their normal size. I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but they're moving across the street in 15,000 feet, and Whole Foods is going to take the old Office Depot and go there with traditional surface. So that's a fun project, and they're in Fremont. They opened in Blossom Hill, and I'm sure they're on more things than I'm remembering off the top of my head right now. But
that's right. What other categories are kind of expanding out there? What do you see?
We certainly see the fast casual going. If we have a Corner Bakery and Panera Bread are being very aggressive, competing in the same category. You see a bunch of those deals. Chipotle and Freebirds. I probably could have added at least a dozen more companies on the sheet up there. Burgers I think are pretty impressive on how many they are. I kind of, when I talk about them, I feel like Bubba from Forrest Gump. If you have Fat Burger, and you have In-N-Out Burger, and you have Smash Burger, and you have Eureka Burger, and you have Inami Burger, and you have McDonald's Burger, and and I missed a bunch of them, but I think there's probably a shrimp burger out there somewhere too. But there, you know, if you looked at Dan's cap rate thing on there, you saw In-N-Out Burger and McDonald's being the lowest cap rates out there. So I don't think burgers are going to go away if they're in the right place in the right protected spot. You know.
How about the fitness guys? They seem really active as well.
The fitness guys are very active. LA Fitness and 24 Hour Fitness are doing deals. LA Fitness, Dollinger has a project on Old Oakland Road in San Jose.
Those aren't the easiest deals to put together either. There's a lot of TIs. I mean, how do you describe making something like that?
Yeah, most of those deals are a shell and $55 a foot. Institutional people are starting, especially with LA Fitness, are dealing with their credit a little bit better. It was tough to finance with them. Not quite as bad as theaters, but they're tougher. But you know, it's not just the big guys that are doing it. There's Modern Woman out there. There's Fitness 19. Bally's is having trouble, but those Bally's things are getting picked up by others. And then there's a whole bunch of smaller ones that are taking it.
You know, Matt, if I could make a comment about that from the investment standpoint, 10 or 15 years ago, if you had a fitness tenant in your center, the investment market would basically assume it was a failed center. There was something wrong with it. It would lower, you know, your cap rate would go up. That is no longer the case. People understand in experiential retail, that's something that you cannot do on the internet. You know, who's go work out. So the fitness is here to stay, and the world has.
I'm here to tell you, I've tried to work out on the internet.
So we have burgers and fitness.
First one, then the other. Complete day.
That's why Matt's got the only private office.
We'll just not comment on that. Well, you know, Todd, one of the things I know that I wanted to talk about on here a little bit that Todd put on here was, and you don't see it in the cycle right now, but those of you that are developing do, is this whole upscale theater thing that's going on. You'll see the Sinopolis right in the middle of the screen above Dollar Tree, ArcLight next to them. Just a couple of examples. Sinopolis did, I think, their first deal down, actually I think it was with Donahue Schreiber, down in Del Mar. You know, it's a couple hundred seats, nice leather chairs, you can get a drink, almost a full restaurant in there. And if they do $5 million in there, they're doing $5 million in the concessions. You know, typically it's a 25% to a 30% kind of film sale to concession ratio. So you're seeing this take place. You know, we live in a world of Regal Theaters and Cinemark here, a couple of specialty guys, but we're starting to see this enter our market, and so you'll see a couple of these open next year and a year after. And you know, whether, you know, who's the operator is yet to be, you know, seen. I know there's some guys out there negotiating, but you're going to see some higher end theaters come into locations. And I guess the point is that we're seeing a lot of food, we're seeing a lot of entertainment come into the marketplace, and the way they're differentiating themselves is by, you know, by having kind of a casual drink bar experience with appetizers, and go right into your nice theaters.
I'll interject one more time that if you have a theater, my experience says, if you have a theater in your center and it represents less than 20% of the GLA, it will not have an effect on the cap rate. We sold El Paseo a few years ago at a sub-6 cap rate, and AMC represented about a 20%, one of several boxes is the way it was interpreted. The institutional market had no problem with it. But there have been this year, in 2012, there were 5 AMC Cinemark type theaters that were for sale in California, all of which were priced by the investors at 9.5 to 12 caps, none of which were sold. So a single purpose retail entity, irrespective of the sales, is a very tough sale. And if you're developing, you know, remember your return on cost.
Yeah, those are pretty expensive to build, and these new ones are really expensive to build.
Large footprint, too.
Yeah, 40, 60,000 feet. I mean, the more seats they get into, the more concession revenue they're going to drive. Okay, so Todd, let's go to who's not hot.
Who's not hot? The you know, e-commerce certainly has an effect on who's not hot. You know, last year we joked about Amazon, Best Buy being Amazon's showroom. It's not really that much of a joke because it's actually true, but the office supply category with Office Max, Office Depot, and Staples, a lot of their stores 20, 25,000 square feet. They want them all to be downsized to at least 15,000 feet. Office Depot has a new concept that's 7,000 feet, but basically what they're getting rid of is they're getting rid of the electronics. They're not making money on electronics. You know, a few years ago we had good guys in Circuit City and Staples and Office Max, and them all expanding the electronics sales, and obviously they've got hurt hard by the electronics. Barnes & Noble has certainly gotten hurt by the internet as well, but you know, the one that I think that's got most of our attention right now is Fresh and Easy. Fresh and Easy has 200 stores on the West Coast. They're in Arizona, California, and Nevada, and I believe there's 19 of them in the Bay right now, but you know, there's rumors of Walmart, there's rumors of Aldi taking them. There's a lot of good real estate out there, and we're watching it closely, but I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with them. They are certainly not hot right now.
All right.
Other than their real estate's hot.
All right. Okay, so we're down to our last question, and we're going to do, if you want, a little Q&A after. We're hoping you come up with a couple good questions for the panelists here, and for Garrick as well, if you have any. So let me just ask this last question to Rhonda. You know, Rhonda, we talked a little bit about, when we put this together, about the kind of the Gen Y and how they shop, how they're living in San Francisco. Kind of explain what's going on with that whole segment, because they're certainly changing the landscape here.
They are, yeah. I was in New York meeting with some clients just recently, and we were talking about this phenomenon of urbanization and the acceptability of living in smaller living quarters. There's a survey that says that with this young generation in their 20s, they're willing to spend 69% of their income on housing to live in a gateway city. And one may say, wow, that doesn't leave much disposable income left. But we have to remember that in cities like San Francisco, where we are the second most walkable city in the country, many folks don't find a need for a car, which saves a lot of cash. Small quarters means small place. We'll look for another place. I need a second place living room and a second place dining room, and this is feeding restaurants and lounges. A second place office at your neighborhood cafe, like the Creamery south of Market or the Grove in the neighborhoods. You want to do your hobbies, you need a second place den. There's a great concept called Tech Shop where you can design so well. You can become a member of this 17,000 square foot facility, just like you were a member of a fitness club. So feeding our restaurants and retailers and creating new concepts at the same time. Second place.
Second place, not so bad in retail.
There you go.
It's not like kissing your sister today.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Next question.
That'll be for 2014. Yeah, I wanted to expand on your walkability comment there in the city, right, which is what people, and Dan, you had mentioned this a little bit in what you talked about. You know, we're seeing more mixed use come online. I think M&G's, Jane, you're here. I think your project is a great example of the walkability. You know, we've all heard mixed use, you know, how it's getting pushed. And it seems like every town's got, you know, mixed use project at some corner that no one ever walks by, right? You drive in, you park, you go up, you leave, and it's vacant. You turn it into the community health club. And, you know, really Santana Row was the first folks out here on the West Coast, I think, to really tackle this correctly, even though they might have missed all these cycles that you got to hit at the same time. But M&G's Mountain View project, if you haven't seen it, go down and look at it. I don't think you can walk it, but certainly look at it, because it is remarkable how they've put together, you know, some office that they're proposing, but just you know, they've got a hotel going in there, they want to do a theater in there, they've got restaurants in there, they've got basic, you know, Safeway in there, and you can walk the whole project, and it's an entire block, and it really works. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that opens up, but also what it means for all of us in terms of land values. You know, if you go down there, they paid, I think, mid-50s for that deal. You know, today if you go down, drive the El Camino, or really anywhere in the West Bay, Santa Clara County, up through the city, and we're seeing land values go, you know, from what was the 50s in the recession to maybe $100 a foot for residential, you know, 2 years ago, to projects, you know, at $150 to almost $200 a foot. So, you know, you might ask yourself, what does that mean for retail? It means you're going mixed use or you're not going, right? Or you're in the city making deals in existing buildings. So, you know, while we show a lot of product and things are great right now, 2013, part of 2014, we're going to see a lot of smaller mixed-use projects, you know, moving forward. And I think, you know, it'll be a little bit more challenging environment, oddly in a good way, because the economy would be good, but it kind of forces us to look at what we're doing in a different way. All right.
You know, the density that happens on the land on El Camino or Stevens Creek, the cities all want it to go up, and they have this grand plan to have residential over retail, but the retail over residential hasn't been done very successfully in a lot of the projects. It works in downtown Walnut Creek, across from the mall, where there's other parking and other shopping and things that are going to go there, but like El Camino in San Carlos, or you know, the car dealerships that are all up and down San Mateo and Santa Clara County, if you don't have synergy around it, those developers buy that land, they want to build the residential because it's very valuable, but some of this retail, they're just like, they're doing it because they have to, and I know that people are going to get smarter about it and better, but that retail doesn't work without the parking and functionality, and you need depth to do it, so.
Yeah, good point. All right, so I'm hoping somebody has a question for us, for our esteemed panel. Anybody? Any takers? No? Up in the back, we've got one. Look at this, it's actually working.
Yeah.
Can you talk about activities related to foreign investors?
Huh? Daniel, I think
yeah.
that's coming to you.
I think I can. There's a tremendous amount of conversation about foreign investors coming again to the States in general and California in particular. In my own experience and those of my colleagues on the investment side, what we're seeing is when that does occur, it either comes in a very high-profile project that a Jamestown, which is German money based out of Atlanta, would buy on Union Square, or it comes from Asian American investors on smaller projects, both in the city and in the suburbs. And other than that, we're not seeing much. And it appears to me that those folks who do come with offshore money, when they get here, if they're going to be successful, understand the environment we're in and then compete within it. There's no dumb money, I'll tell you that much. It's very sophisticated. And we're seeing it, but it is not a dominant force. Interestingly enough, as you go into the B product, particularly in East Bay, it's a much more, it's a much larger part of the investor appetite in those projects.
Anything else? All right. Well, listen, thank you for your patience. This has actually, I think, been a really successful event today. Thanks for coming. You know, just to let you know, we all think we're pretty good at what we do, but we happen to live in a pretty special place, not only in beauty, but with a great economy. And, so be nice to all the other developers and brokers out there who don't get to work in the Bay Area. Just in closing, our forecast will be available in about 2 weeks on the web. And just in case you want to watch it again. And look for Garrick's National Retailer Expansion Guide that'll be coming out in April. I'm sure you'll be getting that. And on your way out, please, we've got a box of candy back there for you to take. It's already wrapped in Valentine's gear, so boys, we're bailing you out early. And thank you for coming. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys around.